All right, so I finally get to talk about the ending of Attack on Titan. I thought this would be coherent. It's probably not going to be. But essentially, I understand why the ending is controversial. I understand why people dislike it. And I'm not even sure I personally enjoy it. I think I do. I'm pretty sure I do. But I do think it is what the story was building towards, and there was no other outcome that would make sense for this story. Let me explain. If I boiled like the ending down to like a little moment within the series that kind of foreshadow what is to come, I keep going back to when they were trying to steal the flying boat, because it's the scouts teaming up with the warriors, and there's a Marley general there. Like, they're all together working together to save the world. And the first step in this is getting to Eren, so they have to get this boat. And Annie is saying, like, the only way for us to do this is to kill all the Jaegers simultaneously, take the boat, or they will destroy it. And it's very clear, we're the two options in front of us. Kill everybody and take the boat, or lose the boat and save the few. And Armin refuses to accept that answer. He's like, no, we didn't come all this way just to kill our friends. There has to be another option. The Marley General Theo, I'm going to go with Theo, takes accountability for himself. He's apologizing to people he called devils before, saying that you are not responsible for the sins of your ancestors. The warriors are not responsible and should not have to make amends for what their people done in the past. I recognize you're not devils. I've been trying to justify my own actions, my own hatreds, my own prejudices. I understand that the endless violence and hatred and bloodshed needs to stop. But the only way to do that is for more bloodshed and hatred and violence. We need more needless bloodshed. We have to kill them to continue on with the mission. So if you have to like look away, it's not right for us to ask you to help us with this mission. So just turn away. Look the other way just this one last time. And Arm is like, no, I will not stand by with with bloodless hands while you go and do this. We will fight. We will help. We will save the world. But we will do this some other way. And they find a plan. They make a plan. They execute the plan. There should have been no bloodshed. They should have just tricked them, got the boat, and go. But it went off the rails. And everyone ended up dying. They end up having to kill the Jaegerists. They blew up a train. More pointless bloodshed. It's a hollow victory. But they are surviving. They're going to save the world for the greater good. They had to do this. Was this right? Is more violence ever right? Is it only possible to achieve peace through violence first? That is like kind of human nature at this point, especially expressed in this world. I think back of Reiner saying that at some point we started fighting and decided it had to be to the death. There was no other option. There was no talking. There was no communication. There was no peaceful resolution. And it feels to me like Armin is constantly trying to find this peaceful resolution, trying to talk, and everyone is telling him, no, the time for talking is over, despite them never having time to talk, and they're just going into bloodshed and violence and war and cycles of war and hatred. For the record, I think this is a terrible thing. You should always find a way to talk. You should find common ground. There's no reason good enough to go to war. I'm saying they have passed the point of no return generations ago, and they don't know how to get back to the point where there is a way forward. So, like, if there's a message to society, don't let it get to that point. So can you really judge Eren for... I'll judge him, okay? For the record, I am judging him. But for coming up with the solution being destroy 80% of the world to bring the two populations on the island and outside the island into equal balance so it won't be a one-sided war. Can you really blame him? I will blame him for prioritizing his home, his friends, and saying, I will not sacrifice them. I want them to live in a peaceful world. And the only way for a peaceful world is to stop war from happening in their lifetime and then just like eliminate 80% of the population when he has been raised in a situation where the only answer has ever been violence. So when Armin comes up to him and they are talking in that world, first of all, Eren's an idiot. Okay, I'm coming right out and saying that because he has all the power in the world and past and present all existing simultaneously. He can see the outcomes and his response is this was the only outcome. You were only ever meant to save 20% of the population. 80% always had to die. I tried to change things and it never worked. In my opinion, bull. because that is not Eren. Eren is fighting for freedom. He calls himself a slave to freedom. And what it is this is the only situation that he would accept. I remember back in season 2, I think it was, someone, I think Reiner or Bert, saying he was the worst possible person that this power could have fallen into. And they're not wrong about that, because he has a really juvenile sense of what is right, what is wrong, how to solve situations. For the record, Eren has grown on me as a character. But his answer has always been attack the enemy. And it's a very black and white way for him to solve conflict, to put it mildly. Just popping in to talk about Eren, because while I don't like him and still think he has too many anger issues, I don't dislike him as a character in terms of the writing surrounding him. Specifically thinking like how Kiyomi had talked about, when will we as people learn to put respect and value on others without first suffering loss? And when will we stop putting ourselves first for like the sake of humanity? Like, Eren suffered a lot of loss, and he's projecting that hatred and viewpoint onto the outside world. And you do see him change. It's just, I don't like the changes. Always felt like he was just redirecting his anger. So at the beginning, it's such black and white thinking. This is good, this is bad, Titans are evil, destroy all Titans. And he's unable to comprehend other people's viewpoint, that people live different lives, have different priorities. He doesn't understand how someone who isn't a coward could possibly want a safe life, just like live somewhere safe and not have to worry about constant death. Like, how aren't you out fighting for freedom? Why are you content living in this cage? And he flat out just insults everybody and calls them cowards for not thinking the way he thinks. But then he gets a heavy dose of reality when he realizes there's more to the Titans. You don't know who the true threat is, and all this hatred you've been projecting on what it should be mindless monsters, you realize they are humans. You realize that the true enemies are other humans who can shapeshift into Titans, and eventually that there's an outside world that hates you. I'm thinking back when he couldn't comprehend that Annie could be one of the Titans, and because of that he couldn't fight her. I'm thinking about all the times he reacted so violently and just with rage, and that normally meant he got like beat to a pulp. Like the female Titan, even Reiner, like a lot of them were a heavy threat and taking him out when he was acting in anger. But then when he strategized, comprehends thoughts, and was more, I'll say, logical, he was able to strategize and put up a better fight. But when he was acting in that anger is when he was at his most vulnerable, when he was weakest. And then you slowly start to see him understand other people's viewpoints, why they acted the way they did, but that not making it any better on his end. How he thought he was so special. He was the one who could defeat all the Titans, save humanity. But then by season 3, he has completely realized, hey, I'm not special. I just have a special power. Maybe it's not good that I have this. Maybe people have died for me for no reason, that I wasn't worth it, and someone else should have this power. Was willing to give it to Historia to sacrifice himself in that way. Like the weight of the world on his shoulders, backed into a corner, and just all the people who died for him, he was messed up. But then to realize, like, you know what, I am not special, but I was born free, and I will continue to be free and fight for that freedom, and I have special powers. I may not be special, but I might have the power to change the world. And then again, his mind gets messed up. Like, as the weight of the responsibility that he holds comes true, as he's questioning who he can trust, as he's letting go of the intense rage and instead thinking things through, he's more composed by the end of the seasons. He knows what he feels has to be accomplished, and he's not looking back. He's not questioning his choices. It's like, this is the path I've chosen to follow. There's no sense in talking. There's no sense in arguing. There's no sense in me lashing out in rage. I'm just going to move forward along this path that I've chosen. So it's an interesting change to go from lashing out in hatred and not understanding to other people's viewpoints, to understanding their viewpoints but not caring because it can't change your own. You have to make your own decisions for you. It's just, he picked a really bad path. So, was this all predetermined? Were they only meant to save that 20%? Was there any way to change it? Quite honestly, I'm saying that Eren is justifying his own actions the same way that Theo Maga, whatever the guy with that when they were attacking the boat, was doing, the same way he was justifying his actions. This was the only outcome that Eren would accept. There are other possibilities. We see one of them. We see a world where Mikasa confessed her love to Eren and they run away together. Avoid the violence. Do not fight. Live a peaceful life in the woods somewhere for Eren's last days. We know that is an option. So it didn't have to come to the world being destroyed. But this is not a choice that Eren could live with because it results in his friends, because the world comes to the island, destroys everything, everyone has to die in that situation. He's not willing for that outcome, which means there are other situations, ones where he only killed 10%, where he killed 50%. Like, there are numbers between 0 and 80% that could have showed a display of force to keep people away from the island, a deterrent. Armin even mentions that. He wouldn't have knocked out all the walls if this was only going to be a display of force. But there was no guarantee that a simple display of force would result in, 100 years peace for the island. Especially if the Titan power was going to be destroyed, if he knew that would happen. Insert commentary on, is the loss of innocent lives and civilians during war worth it to end a war early? Can't imagine where that notion could have came from. But it wasn't just about protecting the island. There was more to what he wanted, an outcome that he would accept. Because when Armin said, "You did this for us," are you kidding me? Punch him in the face. Eren says, "No, I didn't do it for you." And he can't articulate why he did it. He did it because he wanted to see it. This is the sight he wanted to see. This is the outcome that he wanted, that he chose. It wasn't destiny. This was just the outcome that he would accept. He's an idiot who got his hands on power. His words, not mine, though I do agree. And that's why this resolution was the only outcome. He wanted to see the world trampled, to be untouched by humanity, a vast landscape like in Armin's books. That's what he wanted. That's what he wanted to see. But yes, he also wanted his friends to live in peace. But one could not exist at the same time as the other, because in doing the rumbling, it sacrificed the lives of some of his friends. It also put other ones in danger that he didn't even know if they would survive. Armin empathizes with him, understanding the need to erase those who are out to get you, those who would oppress you, who backed you into a corner. Backing into a corner is a really good way of saying it too, because the themes around impossible choices, like many times characters are put in situations where they justify their actions by saying they had no choice, but really they just had terrible options. And this is going to be me 100% rationalizing the conversation that Eren and Armin had. Because when Armin thanks Eren for destroying the world, even though it's like, he says he didn't do it for them, but he did do it for them, and he wanted to see the outcome, and he wanted to protect his home, he's all over the place. It messed with his mind. The Founder Titan and the paths messed his mind up. I take it as Eren and Armin had two sides of the same coin. They were both on trying to live in two extremes. Eren wanted to see his enemies vanquished, and Armin was trying to find a way without bloodshed, a peaceful resolution, and neither one of those are actual options in the world that in order to live in the world. So when Eren is looking out at the distance at the enemies away, Armin's looking in the present, and he picks up that shell from the sea of blood, and he realizes peace is something you have to fight for. It's not given to you. There's no easy answer to obtain it. There's no bloodless answer to attain it. He is willing to get blood on his hands, go to hell, same as Eren will, to fight for that peace, so hopefully people can live in a world in the future where fighting is no longer needed, but he understands there's no easy path getting there. There's no bloodless path getting there. And holding that shell out of the blood river is more living in the moment and accepting that there are good moments that get you through life that make the terrible world that you live in worth living in general. The same way he had that conversation with Zeke in the Paths. So when he's thanking him, I'm going with he's thanking him for opening his eyes that Armin was looking for a pure, peaceful resolution and has finally accepted that there isn't one. That's what I'm choosing to interpret. Hard to say. But in the end, Eren, he resorts back to honestly being kind of pathetic and childish, but in a way that brings so much empathy to his character, because you remember that he's just a kid, young adult, everything, all the pain he has been through, all the impossible choices he's had to make, the weight on his shoulders, and he just says he doesn't want to die. He doesn't want Mikasa to move on with someone else. And even with all the terrible things that he's done, there's a lot of empathy to that. And you're like, he shouldn't have to die. He shouldn't have been put in this situation. Screw you, Eren Yeager, because no matter how sad your tragic backstory is not an excuse for genocide. But he was uncompromising in what his view of freedom was and how it had to be attained, and he was unwilling to relinquish that view of freedom. So this was the only outcome possible. And moving past Eren and the choices he made, we learn, of course, Ymir and how she was in love with King Fritz. And I'm like, Stockholm Syndrome, gotcha. But for it to be going on for 2,000 years and finally being able to relinquish it, and I like the idea of it being she was able to let go of that feeling, that bond to him, feeling that she had to be useful to King Fritz, and therefore that usefulness was actually love and being wrong. But I kind of like the idea of her being able to let go when she saw Mikasa kill Eren, someone she loved, for the greater good. So it gave Ymir the ability to let go of her connection to Fritz, someone she loved, someone who hurt her, hurt the world, but still felt that strong connection to. So to see someone else with that similar devotion kill the one they love for the sake of the world and greater good and their own well-being, yeah, ideas make sense. I just feel this girl needs more therapy. Also, I'm probably just not a fan of Stockholm Syndrome, so I don't think I was ever going to like that plot point too much, though. Now, my ideal ending would have been the Marley and Eldian people working together a little bit more to stop the rumbling, that it wasn't just the warriors, who are Eldians, and the people from the islands, again, Eldians, stopping the rumbling. I wanted Marley a little bit more involved. Granted, we had a bit of involvement, but not quite as cooperative as I would want. I would want these two forces to join together and be equally responsible. Like, we couldn't have done this without the other, rather than them being entirely indebted to the Eldian people, because I don't feel like they'd be able to put everything aside and just be like, okay, well, you saved the world, so now we're good with you. I feel that would just bred resentment. I don't know. I wanted them to work together, to come on terms. And then when the smoke from the founding Titan came out, ideal situation, I wanted the Marley people to turn as well. That the fact that they had all this years of forced breeding upon them by the Eldian Empire, all the little examples that we were given of Marley people having families with Eldians and then putting them back in the ghetto area, showing that the bloodlines had intermingled through all of history. And I had people in my comment section, when I said I think this is how it would have to end, say no, because they had blood tests that signal like who has the ability to Titan shapeshift. Like, I like it when people in the world are wrong, they're misinformed, so they think they can isolate this one group of people as other. This one is the threat. They are different from us. And then being proved completely wrong. Maybe not all the Marley people transform, but like at least some of them be like, oh, there is no way to tell. It's in all of us. We are all the same. But that is like Disney Channel. We all are the same and we can all get along kind of thing. And this is not Attack on Titan world, because it makes so much more sense. Like, they dangle that option in front of us, that the Marley people recognize their mistakes, with the captain guy who's like saying the enemy is coming, make no mistakes, this is our hatred coming back at us, we created this. Eren Yeager is our responsibility, we created him, and now hell on earth, if there is some way that we survive this, I will not make the same mistakes. He says that over the air. And still, when everyone comes back from being Titans, he pulls the guns on them. He resorts back to that hatred and prejudice and fear, giving into fear rather than wanting to speak. He's afraid, repeating the same mistakes, leaving it to Armin to try to talk things out. It goes back to there is no easy solution. There is no instant fix to the centuries of animosity and distrusts between the two groups. I like that it's not clear-cut right and wrong. I like that the people on the island are not just showed as innocent victims, as we see nationalism and fear and propaganda. It all gets worse and worse, festering on the island, the hatred of the outside world, overcome by fear as the growing New Eldian Empire takes hold, and it's presented as this terrible thing that needs to be stopped, but you understand where it came from and how can it be, I guess, broken down and what can replace it. We're trusting in Armin and his ability to connect the two groups in the future, but we're not seeing it. We don't know if it's a possibility because each side has done absolutely terrible, unforgivable things. Whether it's the Eldians who started the world, we don't even know why the Eldians and Marleys were originally fighting, but sure, let's say the Eldians started it, then Marley fought back, protecting itself, but also done terrible things, conquering the world in their own right. Now the Eldians fight back. Like, there's no easy answer of who is right, who is wrong. And all that's clear is that it's the children and the next generation who suffer, who get the blood on the hands, who is raised in perpetual propaganda and fear and hatred and viewing your enemies as demons, like not worthy of respect. And it's just a cycle of blaming the other for cruelty and the pain of this world and not knowing how to stop it. And there not being a clear, easy, one-shot fix-all answer to how you stop it. So we don't know if Eren 100% succeeded because he wanted his friends to live in a peaceful time, knowing the peaceful time will eventually end. But it's assumed that, yes, he did result in peace among those survivors. As we see Mikasa at Eren's grave, the grave bringing her comfort and then growing her own family and eventually being buried. And we see the city grow without the confines of the walls or constraints of the walls into like what could be considered like a utopia paradise. It's futuristic, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous. Then in comes the missiles as the cycle of violence and war comes again. But the tree that Eren was planted under or laid to rest under has grown. So like, has it been centuries? Maybe we did get times of peace before the cycle of war happened, but the point being the war happened again. And we see this beautiful landscape and buildings destroyed, crumbling as it's once again brought to ruins. And you're like, it's a little melancholy, like, oh, we had some time of peace, but now we're back to where we started. The cycle's going on again. But you see this little boy and his dog probably going out for adventures, exploring the unknown world if his giant backpack is anything to say about it. And he comes across, I'm pretty sure, Eren's tree. And similar to Ymir, he goes in there. So is he going to get new power? Is this cycle about to start again? Will there be a different outcome? I'm hopeful for yes. To me, it's hopeful. Because in the past, it was Ymir being chased by dogs. There's anguish, there's fear. And that led to more violence. But here, I want it to be more hopeful. I want it to be this cycle might be different, even though we know it probably will end with just a repetitive nature of war eventually occurring again. Sum up, I like that Attack on Titan didn't give any clear, easy answers. They showed that retaliation was wrong. They showed like having your head stuck in the sand and denying the past or forgetting the past is not the correct answer. But I think it's pretty clear that you want to stop the cycle of war. If you continue fighting, you're just going to result in more bloodshed coming your way, more retaliations. And then you're just going to end up self-destructing. So I like Attack on Titan. I like its ending. I like what it's trying to accomplish with its themes. It's a little messy, but it's a messy, very hateful, very violent world. So what did I expect? I'll choose to believe that eventually the kids will get out of the forest and we'll have everlasting peace. But that is me being raised on Disney movies. All right, talk to you later. Bye.